Some heroes don't wear capes. When 45-year-old Patricia Williams walked onto the Tonight Show stage, she looked like any dedicated teacher, professional blazer, warm smile, quiet confidence from 20 years of shaping young minds. But what Patricia was about to reveal would silence Studio 6B and prove that heroism sometimes happens at 2 a.m. in an Uber. Jimmy Fallon had planned a simple segment about everyday heroes. Keanu Reeves was there to promote his latest film, but neither man was prepared for Patricia's story. The cameras were rolling, the audience was engaged, and then Patricia spoke 7 words that changed everything. I drive Uber to pay my bills. Patricia had been teaching 8th grade English at Roosevelt Middle School in Detroit for 23 years. Roosevelt was located in one of Detroit's most challenging neighborhoods, where poverty wasn't just a statistic, but daily reality for most students. These were kids who came to school hungry, lived in homes where electricity might be shut off, often served as caregivers while parents worked multiple jobs just to survive. The financial struggles began gradually. When Patricia first started teaching, her salary was modest but livable. But as years passed and living costs increased while teacher salaries remained stagnant, Patricia found herself making harder choices. First cable subscription, then shopping at discount stores, eventually choosing between groceries and gas money. Like many teachers, Patricia had begun spending her own money on school supplies the district couldn't afford. Notebooks for students who couldn't buy them, pencils, books to replace outdated textbooks falling apart. Small purchases became larger ones, winter coats for kids who didn't have them, school lunches when accounts ran out, even helping families with utility bills when students did homework by candlelight. The breaking point came 3 years earlier when Patricia realized she was behind on rent because she'd spent grocery money helping a student's family avoid eviction. That night, sitting with an overdue notice on her door, Patricia faced reality. Her teacher's salary wasn't enough to both support herself and help students the way she wanted. That's when she discovered Uber. Initially hesitant about driving strangers, especially at night, the flexibility appealed to her. She could work around teaching, driving evenings and weekends. What started as Friday night extra money gradually became a second full-time job. Patricia's routine became exhausting but sustainable. Teach 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., spend 2 hours grading and planning, grab dinner, then drive Uber 7 p.m. until 2 a.m. weeknights. Weekends meant peak hours when surge pricing helped her earn enough to keep helping students. Her students had no idea about her second job. To them, Mrs. Williams simply always had extra supplies, never forgot birthdays, somehow knew when families struggled, and quietly found ways to help. They didn't know books were paid, for with money earned, driving drunk college kids home at midnight, or that winter coats came from weekend airport runs. Patricia had been driving 3 years when she encountered Marcus Johnson that life-changing October night. Marcus was a former student, bright kid who'd shown promise in 8th grade but struggled transitioning to high school. She lost touch after graduation, which wasn't unusual. It was 1:30 a.m. Tuesday when Patricia drove through a rough neighborhood and saw young men gathered around a car in a parking lot. Something made her slow down, the kind of gathering experienced city residents learned to recognize as dangerous. Getting closer, she realized with shock one young man was Marcus. Marcus was 17 now, taller than remembered, but she recognized him immediately. He stood with 3 older men, and Patricia could tell something wasn't right. Marcus looked uncomfortable, nervous, and the men had the hard look of people involved in 1:30 a.m. parking lot activities for wrong reasons. Patricia's teacher instincts kicked in. This was one of her kids in trouble. Without thinking about safety, she pulled into the parking lot and rolled down her window. Marcus? Marcus Johnson? Marcus turned, eyes widening in recognition and shame. Mrs. Williams, why are you here? The 3 men became suspicious. One stepped closer to Patricia's car, clearly unhappy about interruption. You know this kid? The man asked, tone making clear Patricia's presence wasn't welcome. He's my student, Patricia said firmly, looking directly at Marcus. Marcus, what are you doing here? Marcus looked between Patricia and the men, torn between embarrassment at being caught and fear of his situation. "Mrs. Williams, you need to leave," Marcus said quietly. "This isn't, you shouldn't be here." But Patricia hadn't spent 23 years teaching tough neighborhoods without developing strong sense of when students needed help, even if they couldn't ask directly. "Marcus, get in the car," she said, voice carrying classroom authority. "Lady, mind your own business," one man said, stepping closer intimidatingly. Patricia looked him straight in the eye with fearlessness from years dealing with difficult teenagers and their older brothers. "This boy is my business. Marcus, get in the car, now." The parking lot tensed with violence possibility. Patricia saw Marcus weighing options, saw fear as he realized he was caught between former teacher and whatever situation he'd gotten into. Then Marcus made his choice. He walked quickly to Patricia's passenger door and got in, not looking back. Patricia drove away immediately, hands shaking as she realized what could have happened if things escalated. Marcus sat silently, staring out window, clearly ashamed and afraid. "Marcus," Patricia said gently after several silent blocks, "what were you doing with those men?" Marcus was quiet before answering. "They said they could help me make money. Real money. Enough to help my mom with bills." Patricia's heart broke. She remembered Marcus's situation. Single mother working 2 jobs, younger siblings, never enough money beyond basic survival. "What kind of work?" Patricia asked, suspecting the answer. "Delivery work," Marcus said quietly. "Drive packages from one place to another. Easy money." Patricia understood delivery work meant drug distribution, that Marcus had been recruited by dealers targeting vulnerable teenagers from struggling families, kids needing money, getting pulled into illegal activities, seeming like easy solutions. "Marcus, those men weren't offering a job," Patricia said firmly. "They were recruiting you to sell drugs. If you'd said yes, you'd end up in prison or dead." Marcus started crying, tears from fear, relief, overwhelming stress of trying to survive circumstances no 17-year-old should navigate. "I know," he sobbed. "I knew it was wrong, but Mrs. Williams, my mom works 3 jobs and we still can't pay rent. My little sister needs shoes. I'm supposed to be man of the house, but I can't help with bills. These guys said $500 a week just driving around. It seemed like the only way." Patricia pulled into a lot and faced Marcus, heartbreaking for this kid forced to grow up too fast, making desperate choices, feeling like he had no options. They talked for an hour in that 2 a.m. parking lot about everything: his high school struggles, family's financial problems, college dreams, seeming impossible when he couldn't afford lunch. Patricia listened without judgment, offering support and guidance she'd provided thousands of students. But this conversation was different because it happened in her Uber during the job she'd taken to supplement teaching income, making her realize the profound connection between her 2 worlds. She drove Uber to earn money helping students like Marcus, and now Uber had literally put her right place, right time to save Marcus from his biggest mistake. When Marcus learned Patricia drove Uber to help students like him, the impact was immediate and profound. Here was his respected former teacher working a second job to help students she'd probably never see again. It put his struggles in perspective and showed him a different model for dealing with financial hardship: hard work and sacrifice for others rather than easy money through illegal activities. Patricia drove Marcus home, helped him enroll in GED programs, connected him with scholarships, and gave him her number with instructions to call anytime he was tempted to make choices that could derail his future. Marcus kept Patricia's secret for 2 years. He completed his GED, enrolled in community college, transferred to university studying pre-med. He and Patricia stayed in touch, and she watched with pride as the boy who almost threw his life away became a young man dedicated to becoming a doctor, serving his community. When Tonight Show producers reached out about featuring everyday heroes, highlighting teachers going above and beyond, Patricia was hesitant. She'd never sought recognition and was uncomfortable with national television. But when they explained the segment meant to highlight challenges teachers faced and extraordinary lengths they went to for students, she agreed, hoping to bring attention to issues affecting educators nationwide. The taping was scheduled for a Tuesday evening in November. Patricia had flown to New York for the first time, staying in a nicer hotel than anywhere she'd ever slept. Keanu Reeves was the main guest, and during pre-show preparation, he'd struck up conversation with Patricia, genuinely interested in her work and education challenges. Before we continue, Jimmy announced after Keanu's main segment, I want to introduce someone very special. Patricia Williams has been teaching 8th grade English in Detroit for 23 years, representing thousands of teachers who go above and beyond for students every day. Keanu, I know you wanted to stay for this. Absolutely, Keanu replied, moving his chair for Patricia. I have tremendous respect for teachers. They shape the future in ways most never fully appreciate. Patricia walked onto stage with quiet classroom confidence. She wore simple navy blazer and skirt bought specifically for this appearance, warm smile immediately connecting with audience. Patricia, welcome, Jimmy said, helping her settle. 23 years teaching 8th grade, that takes special person. Thank you, Jimmy, Patricia replied steadily despite the surreal situation. I love what I do. 8th graders get bad reputation, but they're incredible kids at amazing age figuring out who they want to become. What's the most challenging part? Jimmy asked. Patricia paused, considering honest answer without complaining. Seeing kids with so much potential, but so few resources, brilliant, creative, capable young people dealing with poverty, family instability, food insecurity. As teacher, you want to help with all of it, not just academics. And do you help with more than academics? Keanu asked. We all do. Every teacher I know spends own money on supplies, helps families in crisis, stays late tutoring kids needing extra help, not in job description, but part of who we are. Jimmy nodded thoughtfully. Patricia, I have to ask about something affecting teachers nationwide. How do you make it work financially? Teaching is important work, but pay isn't always reflective of that importance. This was the question Patricia dreaded, but knew was most important to address honestly. She took deep breath and made a decision that would change the segment's entire direction. Jimmy, can I be completely honest? Of course, Jimmy replied, sensing something significant about to happen. I drive Uber, Patricia said simply. Every night after finishing teaching and grading, I drive Uber 7 p.m. until 2 a.m., weekends during peak hours, 3 years now, because teaching salary isn't enough to both support myself and help students the way they need. Studio fell completely silent. Jimmy's expression changed from curious to shocked to deeply concerned. Keanu sat forward, clearly affected. You're working 2 full-time jobs? Jimmy said softly. Yes, and I'm not unique. I know teachers working grocery stores, cleaning offices at night, freelance tutoring weekends. We do whatever it takes because we believe in students, but also because we can't survive on one income. Keanu's face showed genuine distress. Patricia, that's not right. Teachers shouldn't work 2 jobs to survive. No, we shouldn't, Patricia agreed. But reality is many do. Honestly, I don't mind the work. What bothers me is spending time driving strangers instead of grading papers or planning lessons or just resting to be the best teacher possible. Jimmy was clearly struggling with implications. What's a typical day like? Patricia described her exhausting routine, teaching all day, grading and planning evenings, driving Uber until early morning, few hours sleep, repeat. As she described her schedule, both Jimmy and Keanu looked increasingly distressed. This is incredible, Keanu said. You're sacrificing rest, time to help students. That's heroic. It's not heroic, Patricia replied. It's just what teachers do. We make it work because students are worth it. You mentioned driving Uber so you can help students, Jimmy said, moved by her story. Can you tell us more? This was where Patricia knew she was taking a risk. She'd never publicly discussed specific ways she helped students, partly because she didn't want recognition and partly worrying about creating dependency. But something about this moment made her decide on complete transparency. I spend a lot of Uber earnings on classroom supplies our school can't afford, books, notebooks, pencils, art supplies. But I also help families directly during crisis, paid electric bills, bought groceries, purchased winter coats for kids who didn't have them. Audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Last month, one student was about to drop out because family couldn't afford $50 fee for advanced placement program. I paid because I knew she had potential for college scholarships, but only if she stayed in challenging classes. Jimmy was visibly emotional. That's your own money, money earned working second job. Yes, but Jimmy, you have to understand these kids don't have anyone else. Their families are doing everything just to survive. If I don't help them, who will? Keanu stood up suddenly, overcome with emotion. Patricia, this is extraordinary. You're changing lives, literally saving futures, with your own money earned from second job you shouldn't need. I had a student, Patricia continued, voice indicating this story was different, more personal. Former student, actually. His name is Marcus. Jimmy and Keanu leaned forward, sensing this was Patricia's story's heart. About 2 years ago, driving Uber around 1:30 a.m., I saw Marcus in parking lot with men clearly trying to recruit him to sell drugs. Marcus is good kid from struggling family, about to make choice that would destroy his life. Studio was completely silent, audience understanding they were hearing something profound. I pulled into that parking lot and told Marcus to get in my car. Probably put myself in danger, but I couldn't let one of my kids throw his life away. Jimmy's eyes filled with tears. What happened? Drove him home, talked for hours about struggles, family's financial problems, dreams that seemed impossible. I helped him see there were other options, legal options, even if harder. Patricia's voice grew stronger. Marcus is now pre-med student at University of Michigan. He's going to be doctor. And the only reason I was in that parking lot at 1:30 a.m. to save him from biggest mistake was because I was driving Uber to earn money helping students like him. Keanu was openly crying. Jimmy struggled maintaining composure. Audience completely silent, absorbing full impact of Patricia's story. Do you understand what you just told us? Jimmy said, voice thick with emotion. You worked second job to help students, and that second job literally put you right place, right time to save students' life. It wasn't just about being right place, Patricia replied. It was about being someone Marcus knew he could trust, someone who'd already shown him adults could care about his future. That relationship, that trust, that's what made him get in my car instead of staying with those men. Keanu knelt beside her chair. Patricia, you saved that boy's life. Literally saved his life, and you've probably saved dozens of other lives in ways you'll never know. Teachers do this every day, Patricia said, tears forming for the first time. We love our students, and love makes you do whatever it takes. Jimmy walked around his desk. If you could change one thing about education, what would it be? Patricia considered carefully. I'd want teachers paid enough that we can focus entirely on teaching, not because we deserve luxury, but because students deserve teachers who aren't exhausted from working two jobs, who have time and energy to give everything to classrooms. She paused, then added, but until that happens, we'll keep doing whatever it takes because our students are worth it. Audience erupted in applause, not typical talk show applause, but recognition, respect, acknowledgement. They'd witnessed something extraordinary. Patricia, Jimmy announced, Keanu and I were talking during break, and we want to do something. We can't fix entire education system, but we can make sure you never have to drive Uber again. Patricia looked confused. I don't understand. Keanu smiled through tears. We're setting up fund to supplement your teaching salary. Enough money so you can focus entirely on being incredible teacher you are without working second job. Jimmy nodded. And we're highlighting your story to bring attention to challenges teachers face nationwide. Because if someone as dedicated as you is driving Uber until 2 a.m., we have serious problem needing to be addressed. Patricia was stunned. I can't accept that. I didn't come here for charity. It's not charity, Keanu said firmly. It's investment. Investment in you, your students, future doctors, and teachers and leaders you're helping create. Patricia's Tonight Show appearance became catalyst for national conversation about teacher pay and working conditions. The fund Jimmy and Keanu established received worldwide donations, ultimately raising enough to supplement Patricia's salary, create student scholarships, and fun classroom supplies for her entire school. But perhaps most meaningful response came from Marcus, who called Patricia the night the episode aired. "Mrs. Williams," he said, crying over phone, "I had no idea you were sacrificing so much for students like me. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for showing me what real heroism looks like." "Marcus," Patricia replied, "you saved yourself by making the right choice that night. I just gave you a ride home." "No," Marcus said firmly, "you gave me so much more. You gave me hope, direction, proof someone believed I was worth saving. That's why I'm going to be doctor, to help kids the way you helped me." Sometimes most powerful stories are about ordinary people making extraordinary sacrifices for others. Sometimes heroism looks like working two jobs so you can afford to help struggling students. And sometimes most important moment in young person's life happens at 1:30 a.m. in parking lot when their former teacher refuses to let them throw their future away. Patricia Williams proved teaching isn't just a job. It's calling extending far beyond classroom walls and school hours. It's about loving students enough to sacrifice for them, believing in them when they can't believe in themselves, and sometimes literally driving through night,